Hi, I'm Carcina.
Oh, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it.
No one knows Carcino and none of these.
There's so much going on in the world, and I'm just giving my 2 cents on it. Go in and do a raid at someone's house, but you don't have an arrest warrant for them.
Welcome, everyone, as we will take you through what is truly happening in the world today because of things such as social media and the internet. They go off on fiery attacks on Black celebrities all the time as if it's, you know, nobody's business, but they never really tell you about the white ones. So that's where I come in. So let's share this and I'll give you a rundown of what's happening with the white ones. Chris Pratt and Anna Faris. Now, from the offset, they met on, Take Me Home Tonight. You remember that movie? That's where they met, filming that movie. And they started dating there. She came over to Chris' house. He wasn't a big star at the time. She was actually the bigger star. He wasn't really even featured. He played the jerk boyfriend in the movie. And he was getting TV deals like Parks and Recreations and things like that. And he was known as Fat Pratt. But then he became a movie star and got in shape, and he signed a deal when he crossed over into the conservative world, into the world of politics, and stayed low key by not saying he's going to divulge his his political status, but he's married to Arnold Schwarzenegger's daughter now. But first he was married to Anna Faris. And he got in shape. He got 2 major deals in Hollywood, two trilogies, the Jurassic Park and the Guardians of the Galaxy Disney. He was chosen and selected. So he was going to be a Hollywood lead. So their child is sick. Anna Faris is dealing with surgeries and everything for Jack. And meanwhile, her husband's out working. He's become the it guy, and she's lost herself. She was the girl from Scary Movie who just wound up having a career doing films, and now she's miserable because she had a hit TV show, Mom, but she was the one in films. And people kept telling her, well, you're too old and you're aged out. And it's like, wow, I'm aged out, but Regina Hall, she could, it was okay for her to continue to play the same character, and they both starred in the first one. And then one guy said, well, black don't crack. And it just was sad for her. She couldn't be in Scary Movie 3 because of that factor. She looked too old to them, which was ridiculous. So Anna never felt like she fit in anywhere. Even though they made her the it girl, it became a show for her life because everybody wanted to blame, Anna and for everything that was going on rather than to recognize what was happening with her career. She got a boob job. She got Botox in her lips. She started doing all these extra things and Take Me Home Tonight. And she was the big movie hunk. She was the big movie star and he was the fat guy. And then he got in shape and became the movie hunk. And it took it to a whole different dynamic. But here's where the things changed. He never cared. Chris Chris Evans became one of his best friends during their marriage and relationship. So when they started doing Hollywood Walks of Fame and doing it at a very early age, he has his son Jack with him, who was very ill and going through so much at the time. And Anna had to spend most of her time raising Jack through his surgeries and everything else. And he's an avid hunter in real life. Chris Pratt. But see, that's the Pratt they know. He was a fat guy. Look at his face, about to blow up. He was fat Pratt. And she was the movie star that they would love to take a picture of. No one thinking about Pratt. He's just sitting in the background. So she kept the family afloat. Even when she had Jack premature. So his first sentence was, "Data is working." So anyway, going through this whole thing, the process went as basically couples competing. Then came the Jennifer Lawrence incident. Now, Jennifer Lawrence was like one of the 15th people who got selected to do this movie, Passengers. And at this point, she hadn't had a lot of romantic situations. Bradley Cooper was the only person she's really been romantic with. And this whole space until this point, it's very few people. And it felt very weird. They had done a movie together and they were romantic. So she was nervous about doing this with Chris Pratt. She was just like, oh, well, I kind of know Bradley Cooper, doing some movies with him. So for me doing, she done like 2 movies with Bradley Cooper where they were basically intimate with each other. So for this, the Silver Lining Playbook and then this other film they did, this role here was Passengers was a movie that was passed on by every single body in Hollywood. They get the script, they say it's a good movie. They had Keanu Reeves and another actress, and it somehow fell to Chris Pratt and Jennifer Lawrence. And they was like, oh, well, they're going to save this movie. And it just didn't work out. And they finally filmed it, and it was just dumped on their laps. So when they did it, the controversy became bigger than the actual film. The rumored affair, because Anna wasn't on set, she had met Jennifer Lawrence and said these two had built up a chemistry. They were having an affair on the set. And I'm here to tell you guys that wasn't true. Jennifer Lawrence never slept with Chris Pratt, but they thought this would build the interest in people going to see the film. No, it bombed. People thought it was the stupidest movie ever. I thought it was interesting, but they lost a bit of the flair of what made the movie important. So, I mean, they were good, like good people, the whole nine. It's just that when people go through a marriage, what actually is going on in the marriage, no one really knows unless you really pay attention to someone else's life. And if you paid attention through all of this, the whole problem is not one person. It's a collective affair. Anna was feeling neglected, left out due to the fact of his success. He claims he never made her feel that way, of course, but she's always had this. She suffers from this. So this became, her thing. Like, well, Anna goes through these spells where she, goes through this process where people have to, she goes through a funk of depression. So she's kind of bipolar in a way, but it is what it is. Now with Chris Pratt, um, the order of business was always something directly different than the average situation. He wanted more children, and she didn't want more children. She's like, dealing with Jack, he deserves, he needs a lot of care. So for me to balance two children, he's like, well, I make enough where you don't have to work. And that's not what she wants. She doesn't want to be forgotten. She wants to work in the industry. She wants people to know, hey, that's Anna. She doesn't want to be, hey, that's Chris Pratt's wife. Because that's how it was in the dynamic of their relationship. She was the one, she was the breadwinner pretty much in the family. Well, the dynamics changed because if you look at people for what they supposed to be, or what they ambitious is, she went and got the boob job. She went and got the Botox to try to look more attractive to get roles, and she got them because she did that. She was in House Bunnies. Just those movies didn't take off. She was in a Seth Rogen comedy and things of that nature. She was in My Super Ex-Girlfriend, but her career just wasn't taking off. She had her own film, What's Your Number, and with Chris Evans, who agreed to play in the movie because he's friends with Chris Pratt, and it just didn't do what they thought it was going to do, and because of it, it ended up being what it is. And Chris Pratt didn't care one way or another that these two were making out with each other because they were friends with his girlfriend, who was Jenny Slate, another comedian. And Jenny Slate was, she's a handful to deal with. But that's pretty much the basis of their relationship divorce. But people think he dumped her to go get a younger, hotter girl. Yeah, well, she was at the red carpet for him, the Golden Globe Awards. She was with him, and all of a sudden, things started to go different when Arnold Schwarzenegger's daughter shows up with Maria Shriver. Uh, and next thing you know, they started getting together. That was a sign. That was put together by people. And once that's manufactured and put together, she was kind of the forgotten girl as he went on and started having kids right away with this Schwarzenegger woman. They got married really quick. Everything was aligned for him to move forward with his career. And she was happy that Chris, and like when the divorce happened, they both knew it was time. So now he's got a daughter with his new wife. He got what he wanted. He wanted to have more kids, and that was the driving force behind the divorce. She didn't want to budge off that, and he was very adamant about it. But they still co-parent for their son. You know, nothing is going to change for him. And she's moved on with a new guy she's dating. And that's just pretty much it. In Hollywood, it's not all roses. You know, it's kind of screwed up. No matter how much money people got or fame, or whatever, what have you, this is always the end game. And she always said, remember this. She showed a picture of Chris Pratt when he was fat and said, remember, I loved you when you were like this. When he was fat Pratt. In other words. Well, other people got to make their decisions, you know. What is it that they're going to do in society? Are they they're gonna say this is it with their marriage? They put black people's marriage on blast all the time. White people got just as much drama, if not worse. So that's what happened. She didn't have a mental breakdown because they left. They weren't happy together anymore. And he started to change. He wasn't as funny as he used to be. You know, he's more serious, more angry all the time. So you don't want that in the house. Nobody does. So go after what you want, chase success, belong to these groups, and still find a way to be there for your son. And that's that.